All right. So this is week 3 of our sales series. I think we'll probably wrap it up next week, but this has been such a fun series. Tonight, we're going to talk about objections and how to handle questions and how to handle objections and concerns when they come our way. And I want you to know that objections can happen at any point during the sales process, whether you have just started a conversation with somebody, whether you're in the middle, or even if you're at the end, when you're getting ready to close somebody. Objections and questions can happen anytime, but we are always going to handle it basically the same. We're going to learn some tools tonight, build on some things that maybe you've already heard us talk about before. But the biggest mindset shift I think we need to have is that we are on their side. I know a lot of times when people come at us with objections or when they come at us with questions, it can feel like we're kind of at opposing sides, but the goal is to be on their side. We ultimately want that person to win. So we are never going to be argumentative or combative. Our goal is always to get on the same side of the table and to come into agreement with that other person. So I think that's just a really important mindset shift for us to have, and a really important just attitude to approach it with, is that, okay, they have some questions. Let's talk through that and see how we can come into agreement, because our attitude really matters so much. Our ability to solve problems together with our potential or with our business builder, and the idea that we get to be a problem solver, is really everything. And I know that objections can sometimes feel scary, and it feels like there is this pressure to have the perfect answer, whatever that is, or there's this fear that we don't know enough, or we're not going to have what it takes to answer those questions. But I want y'all to just kind of, as we move through this process tonight, like, understand that asking questions is a good thing, that having objections is a good thing, because that gives us an opportunity to educate. And something that I think another important mindset shift I think is really important for us to have is that as business owners, we are teachers and leaders by design. Whether you are a diamond, whether you are a silver, we are viewed as teachers and leaders in this. And by default, we are going to be judged more closely. And that's just kind of how human nature, when you're in a position of quote unquote authority on something, if you're putting yourself out there as somebody who's building a business or endorsing a brand, or you're leading a team, even a team of one, you are a leader, because we are leading people to solutions. So the quicker I think that we understand that and embrace that people are going to have questions, they're going to have objections, because we all did coming in. We all had objections. We all had concerns about the cost or the ingredients or whatever it is. We all had objections. The sooner we embrace that and we understand that we get to step up and become the authority and help solve those problems for other people, the further down the line that we're going to be. And the more respect you're going to earn from your audience and your people. And y'all heard us say so much from the beginning that when you start sharing, you don't have to be a product expert. You don't have to be an expert on the business. And I still very much hold true to that. When you start sharing these products, and when you're silver, senior silver, even moving towards gold, there is a big element of connectivity where you are connecting them to third-party tools, and you're following our systems. And that is still absolutely true. But once you really take ownership of this as a business, there is absolutely a baseline of knowledge and confidence that you need to have around our product and around our business model that is going to build that credibility. And that's huge for your audience. So if that's you, and all of you who are on this call tonight are business builders, you're here because you want to build a team with this, I can't encourage you enough to just educate yourself on our industry, on our company, on our products. You don't have to become an expert, but you do need to know what you're talking about. And you do need to back up some of these things that we're going to talk about with objections, with facts, and with, credible material. And another thing too, before we get into the kind of meat and potatoes, and I can't stress this enough, as a leader, in your case, whether you're leading your audience, on social media, your team, your customers, your people are going to follow suit with however you show them to think about you. If you are constantly doubting yourself, or you're leading from a place of negativity or insecurity, y'all, people can sense that from a mile away. They're going to follow that suit, and they're going to treat you accordingly. Become a leader with answers and solutions. If a customer or a team builder comes to you with a question or concern, you better be ready to give some sort of solution, or at least an idea for that person. And I don't want that to weigh heavy on your shoulders, that you have to have the answers to everything. Hopefully that empowers you to step into that role of just becoming a problem solver, because that's really what this is. Leadership in every capacity is helping people solve their problems with the tools that we have. So I just think that's really important. People will treat you how you tell them to treat you. So show up confidently, become the authority on our products, on our business model, and people will treat you accordingly. And it kind of coming along with that, having that attitude of I welcome questions and concern because I am prepared and ready for this conversation. It overflows into everything that you do. And I feel like that confidence is just of utmost importance to this. Somebody comes to you with an objection, good. I'm so glad you have a question because I know that I can address this and give you some clarity and help you come to a solution on this. Product knowledge to me, and we talked about this a little bit in week 1 when we were talking about, understanding the benefits and the ingredients of our products and being able to transfer that into value for the other person. That is armor, y'all. That gives us confidence to handle questions and objections. When we know beyond the shadow of a doubt, pink drink contains chromium and that helps balance blood sugar. And then we can translate that into what that means for you, Chandra, specifically. That is powerful. Okay. So we need to get clear on the kind of knowledge that we need to know. We don't need to know every single ingredient to be an expert, but we do need to know some basic pieces. And that goes hand in hand with our confidence sequences. So just some examples of things that I think we should know as, senior, silver, golden above leaders, just some basic things. Pink drink contains chromium, which balances blood sugar. That is you being an expert on your product. And then knowing how to take that basic fact and translating it into value for your person. Triplex addresses gut health, and then being able to translate that into what does that mean for that specific person? How is it going to meet them where they are? Gut health impacts anxiety, depression. It impacts sleep. Leaky gut impacts autoimmune issues. Magnesium is a natural sleep aid. These are all just kind of basic things that I would just encourage y'all to continue to learn about our products, because when we know those, we can handle some of these objections and then we can move right into that confidence sequence and show them the value. Okay, so we're going to just kind of talk about what it looks like to handle some of these objections. And remember, our goal is always to solve together. It's never to argue. It's always to make the other person the winner. So let's say that somebody comes to us with a specific objection. And I think something to remember anytime we're having a conversation with a prospect, even if we're not dealing with an objection, is that remember first that you are the driver and the leader of the conversation. The person who asks the questions is in control of the conversation. So I want y'all to write that down. That is really important. The person who is asking the questions is in control of the conversation. And we've talked about this in book club. I think we talked about it and touched on it in week 1. We're going to come back to that 70-30 rule of conversation, that you should be asking the questions so that they are talking 70% of the time and you are talking 30% of the time. Okay. So during this process, and especially during objections, we always want to bring the conversation up, meeting them where they are. So a lot of times when people bring an objection, maybe they're kind of in a negative mindset, not that they have a generally negative mindset, but maybe around this one area, there's something that's holding them back. Our goal is always to meet them where they are, but to bring them up out of that objection. And the way to do this is between identifying empathy versus sympathy. And there's a very subtle difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is the ability to understand someone else's point of view, to simply be able to see something from someone else's point of view. Sympathy is the approval of that idea. And I think we have to be really careful when we're meeting people in their objections to meet them with empathy, to say, understand where they're coming from, but stay out of that emotion and wading in the river with them. And it's I love that visual of sympathy is getting in the river and like walking with them and kind of getting in that emotion with them. We want to meet them on the bank with empathy where they are. Hey, I see you. I see where you are down in the river, but let me pull you up on the bank. Let me pull you up out of that and show you that there's a different way to look at it. So always empathy over sympathy when you're talking about objections. So the first step is always to be objective. We never want to argue or diminish someone else's point of view, because whatever objection they're bringing is valid with the information that they know. So if someone says, this is too expensive for me right now, the last thing we would want to do is diminish that point of view for them or discount where they're coming from. We would never want to say, well, actually, it's not expensive because of A, B, and C. We want to make sure that we meet them where they are, because even though that language is really subtle, it can feel combative and it can make people kind of like make them bristle a little bit. It feels dismissive of their feelings, and it will shut somebody down right on the spot if you're making them feel like their feelings are not valid. So remember, we want to get them on the same side of the table with us. So instead of saying, well, actually they're not, try, saying something like, I totally get where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from, and then addressing it from there, creating a cushion and kind of creating commonality there. And then, the process that we're going to move through from here is something you've probably heard us talk about. It's feel, felt, found is a good way to kind of remember it. We're going to expound on that a little bit tonight. But when you think about feel, felt, found, it's I feel where you are right now. I have felt that way too. Here is what I have found. And we're going to come into agreement with the person with the objection. It's kind of a 3-part method. So that first part is simply what I just talked about. It's the cushion. Think about it as a pillow. It's a soft place for them to land. It kind of softens the impact. I completely understand where you're coming from. Or that's a really great question, kind of validating the question or validating the concern that they're bringing. Or that's a really good point. Or I completely get that. Or I hear you. Those are all really great cushions to kind of validate the concern that they're coming from. The next thing you're going to do is come into a point of agreement together. We're going to get on the same side of the table. This is kind of coming into harmony with that person and getting on the same team. So if, let's just use the example of somebody says, this feels out of my budget right now. I might say something like, I completely understand that. Honoring our budget is also really important to me. I am finding some commonality with them. Maybe even price wasn't an objection of mine in the beginning. Let's say that it wasn't an objection, but honoring my budget is a way that I can come into agreement with this person while being, honest and truthful. You want to find some way to find some common ground. I also value my budget. Or if, let's say there's another objection, they're asking about an ingredient. I completely understand that. That's a great question. Taking clean supplements is also super important for our family too. So just finding that common ground and coming into agreement. So you've got your cushion. I completely understand. You're validating where they are, and then you're going to come into agreement with them. I also value my budget, or honoring our budget is also really important to me. And then right here, this is you kind of can play this by ear. And we talked about this a little bit in week 1, is just gaining clarity around what is it that's actually important to this person. What are we actually working with here? I need to actually understand the objection fully so that I can meet it head on. So you might need to gain a little bit of clarity right here and say, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or can you tell me a little bit more about what you're currently doing to help with energy? Or you could even say something like, you said money was a concern. What would you say would be your monthly budget for investing in your health? Just kind of asking them outright, I hear you that money is a concern. What would we kind of be looking at? Because we have different combos and different products at different price points, and we can meet you where you are. So that might be a point where you need to do a little bit more clarity and ask some more questions. Or you may already have all of that information and you may be ready to move on to the next step, which is actually handling the objection. After you've kind of validated where they are, you've said that you understand where they feel, you're telling them how that you've maybe felt the same way too. And here's what I've found. You're going to show them, this is where you get to show them a different perspective, a different way of thinking. And there's a couple of different ways to do that. I think our tendency is kind of to insert our own story here and kind of insert, well, here's how I think about it, or here was my story. And sometimes that's relevant because we may have a story that really resonates with something that they're going through. But remember, what are they always thinking? They are always thinking, what's in it for me? Your story is a huge part of this, but they don't want to hear you ramble on for 20 minutes about how, you had budget issues when you first started this too. They are looking for a solution. So avoid talking too much about your personal self unless it is directly relatable. But there's a couple of different strategies that you can use here when you're handling the objection. And I can send these out. I didn't put these in a PDF, but I can send these out. But there's 4 different ways that you can kind of handle an objection. And the more you start to use these, the more you'll kind of find that you probably are going to gravitate towards one or the other, kind of based on what the objection is. Sometimes you'll need to do one of these based on the objection, but you'll find that maybe you gravitate towards one or the other. But the first one is a reverse. Okay. A reverse is simply taking their concern and turning it into the very reason that they should move forward. So if we're talking about a cost objection, this is what it may look like. Sarah, I totally understand that. I so get that. Honoring my budget is really important to me too. As a stay-at-home mom myself, I found that my very reason for not starting was the reason that I needed to start. And then because I have a strong personal connection to that, I may share a little bit of my story about why I needed to invest in myself to be a more present mom, and again, I'm always coming back. If I'm talking to Sarah, like, I know what's important to her because I've already asked all of these questions. I know what Sarah values. So through this objection, I can come in and address some of those things. Does that make sense? So if I know that Sarah is a stay-at-home mom and she wants to pour into her kids, I'm going to make sure that I'm incorporating all of that into how I'm handling that objection. Okay. So your reverse is taking the very reason that they don't want to do something, or the reason that they're objecting, is turning it into the reason that they should. Okay. The next one is explain. And that is simply just taking their objection and explaining it out a little bit. I understand that cost is an issue. I'm also really mindful of our budget. Let me explain. There are different products and combos that fit almost every budget. So that's when you could kind of go down and explain to her that, hey, there are some different options here for you. I'm meeting you where you are. Let me explain some of your different options. The third one that we can use is admit. And I feel like this is a really big one because, when people, and especially with the cost objection, because people do come in with valid cost objections. There are people who come in and $120 is a little bit outside of their budget. So being able to take that objection and being able to take that sticking point and then showing them that I agree with you, it is an investment, but then we're going to turn it around. This is what it could look like. Sarah, I completely understand that. I'm also really careful about honoring our budget, and I'll admit that Triplex is an investment. The good news is that you'll actually feel a difference with these supplements and have the domino effect that you're actually looking for to make a difference in your health. You're not going to be wasting your money on these products. So admitting that, hey, I hear what you're saying. It is an investment in your health, but let me tell you why it's worth it. These are the things that you told me that you wanted to address, and this is how that is going to help you. And then the last one, and this would really be used just in specific instances when they come to you with an objection that is just flat out not true, is just to deny and to be able to educate them on the truth of the matter. So I understand, Sarah. I'm also really mindful about our budget. That is just not true. You don't have to start a business or purchase a $300 kit to get started. And that would be, of course, if Noelle came at me and said, oh, I really want to start Plexus, but I heard it costs $500 to start and I just don't have that kind of budget right now. You're simply educating them and saying, hey, that's actually not true. Let me show you what the actual truth is. So you would really only use deny if somebody came at you with something that was truly not true. Okay. So let me kind of give you an example of what that would look like all put together. Okay. So let's say, Sarah is coming and the products are too expensive for Sarah. And I've done all of my I've done all of my info gathering on Sarah. I know her well. I know what her pain points are. So this is kind of how I would address that with her. Sarah, I totally understand how you feel as a stay-at-home mom of 2 and not having a full, excuse me, I mistyped. I totally understand how you feel as a stay-at-home mom of 2 and not having a full-time income. Honoring our budget was a top priority too. What I have found is that my very reason for starting was the very reason that I needed to. I couldn't afford not to be well. My family needed me at my best for them. And so I loved our wholesale membership because it saved me a lot of money on my products and allowed me to bless my family with referral bonuses. I can help you share with 3 people and receive $300 your first month. That's going to help you cover your first 2 months of product and more. So I know that Sarah is a stay-at-home mom like I am. I know that Cost is an objection of hers. So I'm showing her that she needs to invest in her health because that's what she told me she wanted to do, is feel better. And I'm giving her an option for getting the cost of her products covered. So very simple. I'm giving her a cushion. I'm affirming what she said. I am coming into agreement with her. I totally see how you understand how you feel. This is how I felt, and this is what I have found. Does that make sense? This is not brand new. We've been talking about feel, felt, found for years in our company, in our business, on our team. Just having those kind of terms of cushion and coming into agreement and then being able to handle the objection in those 4 different ways gives you a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more clarity on how to kind of move through that conversation. But I think product knowledge and just really being confident in what you're going to talk about helps you to move through that so easily. Because if you know that Sarah is looking for natural energy, you can be so confident in your delivery that Pink Drink is going to help her, that Active is going to help her. And you're going to be able to move her through, here's the benefit, but here is the real value for her. So once you move through these objections and you kind of get past these objections, you're going to move right into a confidence sequence and go right into that value for her. But we have to first address the objections. And I really think handling objections allows us to play offense rather than defense. That's really what it does. It puts the ball in our court, because like I said in the beginning, if you are coming into this with this air of, I am confident, I'm ready for questions, I know my stuff, I know my products, I know I have done my research and I've asked the right questions of this person, you are fully equipped to handle those and be confident and deliver a response that is going to get you on the same side of the table and help serve that person and help them win. Because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help our people win. So I think that attitude is everything, honestly, of just realizing that, hey, this is not a threat to me when somebody comes at me with a question. This is an opportunity for me to educate. It's an opportunity for me to add value and show them that I have an answer to something that they need. So that's really it. I think we overcomplicate objections. It feels scary. It feels scary. But more than anything tonight, I just want to empower y'all that you are the owner of your business. You are the authority. And that shouldn't scare us. That should embolden us. I want people to look at me as their go-to gut health girl. I want them to look at me as their network marketing guru. When they think about gut health, they're coming to Chelsea. When they think about starting a small business, they're coming to Chelsea. That's the attitude that we should have when we're sharing our business, when we're talking to people on the phone and in Messenger, is just that boldness of, I'm owning this space and I'm completely confident. Come at me with your questions. I'm an open book. I feel like that's the attitude that we should have, hands open. Steph, I see you nodding. Does anybody have any questions, specific questions about this?
I was just going to add, Chelsea, a lot of what you said, I found, so I know there's a couple of newer people on the call tonight, so I just want to say, this is my 9th year in Plexus, and Noelle joined me the year after I joined. So this is her 8th year. And to this day, Noelle and I cannot tell you every ingredient in every product. I'm an information person. I want you to know that. I'm very analytical, I'm very logical, left brain. So when people would ask me about the products, I would send them 82 different attachments and PDFs with ingredients and everything about our products. And what I found is most of my friends would say, okay, this is cool, but why do you like it? What does it do for you? So I want you to know that don't pressure yourself with having to know every ingredient in every product. Almost a decade into this business, there are still a couple of Plexus products that I've never personally tried before. So if somebody has a question about a specific ingredient or product, I have no problem saying, you know what? Nobody's ever asked me that. Let me double check. I don't know. I don't want to tell you wrong. Give me a few and I'll get back to you. I have no problem saying that to somebody. I think that's completely reasonable. So don't stress yourself out. Just be upfront and tell people, give me a minute and let me look into it. No sweat. But most of the time, your friends want to know why you like this stuff. What does it do for you? So I always go to that. Like when I talk about the triplex combo, I tell my friends, this is our best selling combo, which it is. It's what I typically have everybody start on. And it's blood sugar, gut health, and inflammation, which is like, the major cornerstones of all illness and disease today. But this is why I like it. This is what it's done for me. And that's what I go into. I'm not trying to convince. I'm just simply saying what I think about this. If you guys were recommending a product off the shelf in Target, whether it be a hair product or a vitamin or whatever, and your friend's like, oh, what are the ingredients? You'd be like, I don't know. I just know I love it. I bought it. I don't know what the heck is in it. So don't stress yourself out with that. And granted, I know this is like our business and this is what we do, and we do promote these products, but I don't know. I just kind of take that frame of mind with it. Like, this is why I love it. Because I held myself back in the beginning very much because I didn't know every freaking ingredient and every scientific, biological, chemical, thing that went on in your body when you took one of our products. And I just realized I need to stop doing that. I just need to tell people why I like it. So I just wanted to share that.
No, I think that's so good. And I think that goes so back to week number 1. And it's so interesting because I've been doing this for 6 years, and I know we attract different people. Like some of us attract, people who are more, ingredient minded and more scientifically minded. And so you need to know your people for sure. But having just that baseline knowledge, people don't ask you to take deep dives into that very often. When I tell somebody that 90% of your serotonin and melatonin is created in your gut, nobody has ever asked me for like a peer-reviewed study on that. Or like, can you tell me a little bit more about that? No, because it's just a fact. Like, and if they needed that, I could send them a Google article, but it's translating it back to the value. It's like, here's a statistic that can be proven in a court of law. I can send you a med thing on it right now. I can send you a med article on it right now, but translating it back into the value for that person. And that's exactly what you were just talking about. It like, what was the value for you? That's what we're going to talk about next week is like, how do we get attention grabbers and like creating curiosity? It's just by doing that, like sharing pieces of your story.
Yeah. I really feel like that's what most people want to hear. I do know, and thank God that's not my audience. And Noelle and I have joked about this. I'm like, thank God that's not our audience with people who are very like ingredient focused. But I do remember I did an event probably like a year or two into Plexus, maybe my first year. We had a room in a restaurant here locally that we loved, and it's like probably 15 or 20 of my friends and like new ambassadors that I had, like new VIPs that came and were interested in this business. And I stood up and I was talking about the triplex and just, this is what it is. And I was and this is just my talking style. So I was coming with the facts and not very, emotionally based about it. I was like, just features and benefits, And one of my new level ones, a new teammate of mine, had brought a friend of hers. And she raised her hand. She's like, that's great. Like, I love what you said, but why do you love this? And I was like, oh, why do I love it? Well, I'll tell you why I love it. And then I just started, just running my mouth about what I love it. But I feel like that's typically what most people want to hear is what is it doing for you? So, but Katie had a really good question in the chat about any suggestions when someone's thinking about starting again after being off a triplex for a year or two, and the only objection is being inconsistent. So I would, just one thing I'll say to that, and I'd love for anybody else to give feedback to this. As somebody who's taken supplements forever, and I know Noelle will back me up when I say this, I think Plexus is the easiest regimen to take. It's not, I have a supplement now that I'm struggling with because I'm supposed to take it 30 minutes before my meal, and I cannot remember. I'm like eating halfway through my meal or after my meal, and I'm like, shoot, I didn't take it. So I think it's extremely easy to take. And my thought process is, let me help you by telling you this is super simple. Don't overthink it. Cause of course you don't want them to feel defeated because they can't remember to take it. Let's figure out the way, like how your day looks and how you can take it to where you can remember. And I think Rebecca jumped in there and said, pair it with something that they do daily, like brushing their teeth. That's what I'll tell people too. Drink your pink drink during the day, and then take your probiotic and Probio 5 and BioCleanse at night before you go to bed. Put it on your nightstand, take it before you go to bed. Just keeping it ridiculously simple so they can just get started on it.
I love that. And I would say too, with an objection like that, especially with somebody who is already open to the products, I think that's where coming in with a solution and just coming in with confidence is so important, and say, I can absolutely help you with that. Here's what I have found is that people who are able to be consistent with their products, they experience, more benefits. Here are some ideas. And so I would just come to her with some ideas, just like what Rebecca was talking about. Tell me a little bit about your daily routine. What do you do in the morning? What do you do at night? And then help her create a routine that is going to be sustainable for her. But just always that attitude of, like, with that posture of, I need to have not the pressure of having a solution, but just being a critical thinker and being a problem solver for your people. When somebody comes to you with, hey, I've got a goal for the end of this month, or I've got, whatever it is, become a problem solver and be a creative thinker. How can I help you with this? And just be confident in that and say, I know exactly how we can help you do this. So much of this is your delivery. And that's one of the things. There's just so much that I'm learning in guide culture that there's hours and hours and hours that I could pack into this. But that's one of the things she really talks about too, is your delivery and the way that you're coming across with confidence to people is 93% of the game. We talked about this in week 1 too. 7% of what you say is your words. 93% of how you communicate with people is your posture, and is the way that you speak, your tone, your inflection, your body language, all of the rest of it, 93%. So coming across with that confidence and, hey, let's create a solution together is just huge, huge piece of the puzzle. And that really takes the pressure off of the words, right? Like, we don't have to have the right, we don't have to say the right thing, or we don't have to have the right answers, as long as we're coming from a posture of, hey, let's get on the same side of the table. I'm on your team. I want to help you solve this.
Hey, Chelsea, I wanted to add in too, because some of the things that people will tell me they hear, like I never hear, but I think I talk with such passion and excitement that nobody's going to try and challenge me on it. But as far as what you guys were talking about, ingredients, Melita just messaged me earlier. Do you have anything with beetroot in it? My son wants a product with beetroot. And I'm like, I know Slim has a beetroot in it. I think Active might let me check on it. There's no reason you can't go check. Now, Melita didn't think I was dumb because I didn't know immediately that Active had beetroot in it. But it's like, I love that we don't always have to know. I had a girl today who messaged me something and I knew half of it. And then I said, let me check in my Jewel chat. Sorry, I'm going to hang this up now. But it's okay to say, let me check with some other people. And she actually thanked me for taking the time to ask in my chat. Not like, oh, you didn't know that. All right.
It's the confidence that you handle that situation with. Hey, let me go check. Let me check on that. I'm going to send you the info sheet so you can see the ingredients. It's the confidence that you handle it with. Absolutely. And Noelle, your whole, like, you just scream credibility. Like, truly, you're in the health and wellness field and you talk about the products with so much passion and conviction. That's just built-in credibility. You've built that credibility. You don't have to be a bodybuilder like Noelle to share probiotics. I am the furthest thing from Noelle, but I feel like I have built credibility in a whole different area of simplifying wellness and, being a gut health lady. So I don't want you to feel like you have to, display that same type of persona, but the confidence, it really just exudes and comes through. Anything else?
I just want to thank you, Chelsea, because you're always so good at teaching things. Like, you're so good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely. I did want to add something. So I have not always been consistent. I'll be the first to say it. But what I did is I took the pink drink and the Active, and I have it in my purse, in my backpack, in my car. And then I also took little vitamin, or like a pill thing, Monday through Friday. And I put my vitamins in there, and I have it at my nightstand so that I can just take it whenever, because I did think at one point that I had to do it like in the morning or at night or during the day, different things like that. But that's not the case. And Noelle has always been on me. She never gave up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And even I've been on the phone with somebody before too, who's like, I'm like doing the same exact thing. Stop right now, go to your car, put 3 sticks of Slim in your purse, put some ProBio by your bedside. Like, let's make a plan right now for success. And that's another reason why getting on the phone with people and really having that in-person conversation. Tell me a little bit about your daily routine. What do you do every day so you can troubleshoot? Anything else? This was a shorter one this week. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me tonight, y'all. We'll wrap up next week and finish this up with round 4.
Thanks, Chelsea. Thanks you guys for being on tonight too. This was a great call.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Night, y'all.
Night, night.
Night.